Memphis police on Friday evening released graphic video showing the arrest of Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old black man who died after a traffic stop on January 10th. Federal, state, and local authorities had warned that the footage of five former police officers who are all black men was horrific and appalling, bracing the Memphis community and the country for what they would see. Over the course of the video, officers pepper sprayed, deploy a stun gun, and beat Nichols. Nichols can be heard repeatedly screaming for his mother throughout the beating. At least one officer can be heard repeatedly yelling for Nichols to give me your hands, though Nichols already appeared to be on the ground. Final video footage from a police camera mounted on a pole shows Nichols surrounded by the officers, with at least three simultaneously punching and kicking him. Officers who were not physically participating in the beating did not intervene or attempt to stop those who were. At least 8 officers were present at the scene. Video of the arrest was taken from Polcam, Skycop, and police body camera footage. The 5 police officers were fired from the department last week. On Thursday, they were charged with second-degree murder and other offenses. The officers were part of the Scorpion unit of the Memphis Police. Attorneys for Nichols' family have called for that unit to be disbanded. Scorpion, or the Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods unit, is a 50-person unit that polices particular areas of the city, which disproportionately end up in black and brown communities, the attorneys argued. What we've seen this month in Memphis, and for many years in many places, is that the behavior of these units can morph into wolf pack misconduct that takes away a person's liberty or freedom to move, akin to a kidnapping, attorneys Benjamin Crump and Antonio Romanucci said in an open letter. These often aggressive encounters flat out destruct trust between police and the communities they are sworn to protect and serve, but as we saw in the tragic unnecessary death of Tyre Nichols, can also lead to physical injury or death when the culture of unchecked, proactive policing overtakes common sense. 2 unidentified firefighters have not been charged, but Shelby County District Attorney Steve Moreau said Thursday it is possible more charges could be forthcoming. Nichols' family had already seen the video before its release. His stepfather, Rodney Wells, called the footage horrific. His mother, Ravon Wells, said she wasn't able to watch the full video. Crump, the famed civil rights attorney representing the family, likened the footage to that of Rodney King, a black man brutally beaten by Los Angeles police officers during a traffic stop in 1991. Ahead of the release, Memphis, Tennessee Police Chief Cerelyn Davis called the incident heinous, reckless, and inhumane. Davis on Friday said police decided to release the video on a Friday evening instead of during the work week, so any potential protests would not be as disruptive to people in school or at work. Officials in cities around the country are now calling for peaceful protests in response to the video. So I watched the video and I got a little confused by what was going on. It was pretty dark, but the general themes that were mentioned in the article did occur where as Tyre is running away, they fire this stun gun, and even after he's on the ground, they're still beating and attacking him. It's just a very violent thing that I don't plan to ever watch again. I just wanted to, because there's always that morbid curiosity, like how did this play out? I tend to agree with what Crump said about the over policing and it being unchecked, but I just don't understand why it takes 5 officers to arrest a suspect who, by all accounts, was not violent, did not possess a weapon. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there's one other part of the article that was mentioned that I do want to highlight. And I should say that I don't usually praise police departments, but I do agree with the rationale of putting it out on a Friday, because you never know how people are going to react to this stuff. There will be some that will talk about it. There will be some that go out and protest and sometimes riot. So I think it was smart to wait until the weekend was, the subsequent days to stick this up there or to release this. What I think is interesting is the article makes mention of the fact that the 5 officers were black. And one of the solutions that gets mentioned when we're doing the whole, racism in the U.S. thing is that, oh, if African Americans, or if they police themselves, then this would, this whole supremacy system would be overturned. But I mean, what's the point of having representation within higher forms of, I guess you could say, government and other agencies that are in control of people's lives, if they're just going to practice the same style of policing and brutality as their white counterparts? I mean, the idea that this black man lost his life and it was the byproduct of five crazed, ridiculous officers who are also black really does show you that you're not going to just automatically get a change because the officers aren't Caucasian. And there's some bigger systemic issue with cops and brutality that should be addressed, as opposed to, sitting here and acting. I just thought it was interesting the article pointed out, because we've seen a couple of instances where this type of thing has happened before. And you have your politicians that are going around and they're giving their little speeches, and you have Crump, who, I swear, it's like he will, anytime he can find a case to stick himself in front of a camera, he will. But what's really sad is that we know how this is going to turn out. We know that people are going to say, "Oh my God, this video is awful," which it is. They're going to talk about, police need to be held accountable, which they seemingly are being, given that they've been fired and are facing charges. But after maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I don't think this is going to get mentioned at all. I think it'll probably be remembered for having, because there's a whole bunch of videos of violent stuff. Unfortunately, the U.S. is just a violent, sick country in a lot of instances with various things that happen here. But you're probably going to see the case be a major thing for a couple of weeks or a month, and then just not get talked about anymore until maybe the trial. And that's really sad, because there's a lot of conversations you can have here about, whether, again, if are dash cams really effective, as far as, do they actually prevent people from facing these brutal demises? Are communities truly better off just because the officers that are policing them are of the same ethnicity when they're practicing the same harsh practices? I mean, I think a lot of it's interesting stuff to discuss and to, seek finding solutions to. But the problem is, these cases just don't really stick, as far as, continuously being a thing that's kept alive. And there's an inherent tragedy in that as well, because those that forget the past are destined to repeat it. So I really would recommend people don't watch that video. I didn't like it at all, and it did make me kind of queasy. But it's just sad. And I really can't think of any redeeming qualities of this. You're going to see some politicians get up and give their speeches about how things need to be changed, and maybe you'll get these 5 cops in jail. But do I really think we're going to see this stop happening? Not really. I mean, you'll probably even have some conservative commentators like, "Oh, he ran away, so that justified violent force," because that's what they do. They always find a way to take the side of whoever, of the officer, no matter how violent or just are screwed up what they did was. So, it's all, there's no, I don't really see anything good coming out of this. A man lost his life thanks to some violent, insane officers, and his passing is going to be used as fodder for people who are in positions of power and influence, who are not actually going to do anything to make things improve in any substantial way.